we had a downsize after the crash. My wife's, to her credit, said, that's it. We're downsizing. So we went to a 1-bedroom apartment, Rocky, 1-bedroom apartment from a $2 million house, 2.5. And it caused us to get rid of the steamroller behind us with the bills. It caused us to get rid of all debt, and it allowed me to build a monster business that we have today. So all that to say, we were sitting in the living room I'm 55. So it was 5 years ago. And she said, kiddingly, but accurately, it took you 50 friggin' years to figure this out. It's not an overnight. So people say, oh, wicked smart, the community, all the stuff you're doing, that's great. You did it so fast. No, I didn't. It took essentially 50 years or 30 years in real estate to get it.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Rich Your Soul. Today's guest is Chris Prefontaine, who's going to share his real estate journey and so much more. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Rich Your Soul, where we achieve our dreams and create harmony to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Rich Your Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richyoursoul.com. Today's quote is from Tim Ferriss. Role models who push us to exceed our limits, physical training that removes our spare tires, and risks that expand our sphere of comfortable action are all examples of eustress, stress that is helpful and the stimulus for growth. We're going to chat about that today. Reality is, life gets uncomfortable, and we may not like it, but it's for our own best good. It's when we grow and prosper, and we need to accept that sharpening, even though it doesn't feel good in the moment. Last week's action step was to overcome a habit of discontent. Every night to do an inventory of your day and see what has given you happiness. Here's the deal. You and you alone are the only one who can make you happy. And you don't need anything else. You've got to go searching within and be thankful for what you have. We're going to talk about this in more detail today during the interview as well. You may remember my real estate journey. It had a long gap of over 20 years, which has really cost me millions of dollars, but it's okay. I still have enough, and maybe the universe was telling me it wasn't the right time. It's one way to build wealth, and Chris is going to talk about it from a different angle and mindset than we've talked about it in the past. So it's quite interesting and some useful information for you. I'm currently reading Devil in the Hindmost, A History of Speculation. I gotta say, I am shocked at how prevalent speculation has been in history and how often it happens. It's happening again now. The outcomes are always the same. A big crash, people committing suicide, and the middle class losing their wealth. I hope you don't get caught up in that. It's an emotional game, and it's got a heavy toll. Today, we'll look at how to remove that and still get ahead. I'm excited to have my friend Chris Prefontaine join us. He's a 3-time best-selling author of Real Estate on Your Terms, The New Rules of Real Estate Investing, and Moneeka Sawyer's Real Estate Investing for Women. He's also the founder and CEO of SmartRealEstateCoach.com and the host of the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast, which I've been on. Chris has been in real estate for 30 plus years. His experience ranges from constructing new homes in the 90s, owning a real estate executive franchise, to running his own investments, commercial and residential, and coaching clients throughout North America. After experiencing the crash of 2008, he totally re-engineered his business to weather all economic cycles and storms, whether it be 9/11 or COVID. Today, Chris runs his own buying and selling business with his family team, where he purchases 2 to 5 properties monthly, so they're in the trenches every single week. They also help their associates and students do the exact same thing across North America, working together on another 25 to 30 properties every month. Having been through many real estate cycles, Chris understands the challenges of this business and helps students navigate in constantly changing real estate waters. Let's meet our guest. Welcome to Rich Your Soul, Chris Prefontaine. It's great to have you join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rocky. It's always good to hang out. I like hanging out with you.
As do I. So we like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up? How much did your family and school teach you about money?
Well, school, zero. Let me make it one disclosure there. So in one time in my entire school career, I'm talking every grade that I can think of a teacher ever trying to work on money, was in middle school. The gentleman, to his credit, taught us back then, because it's not relevant today, but how to write checks and physically balance a checkbook. He literally did that in math class, which I thought was pretty cool in hindsight. No one ever did that. So luckily my parents had already taught me that, but for most kids, they didn't know what the heck was going on. As far as, I think the other part of that question outside of school, I couldn't wait to say no to that. But the other piece was family, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. So my dad always had his own business. He took over his father's business. It was tiny, and then he grew it to be quite a business that he sold. So I watched that. I went to work for him, quote unquote, when I was like, I don't know, 8 or 10, sweeping floors just to hang out. I liked hanging out at his business. So I was around that environment where it was a healthy discussion. It was never negative. I don't know how deep you want to go in that, but that's my memory of it anyway.
Did he teach you about business, or was it more just working in the business?
No, he taught me. Like to this day, my wife will say, I've been married 35 years coming up this summer. My wife will say, where'd you learn that one? Like, because I'm always coming up with ideas. I said, oh, my father did it 20 years ago. So it was pretty neat. He'd engineer new businesses, new ideas, leasing companies, all these weird things that people didn't think of. And he didn't go to college. He was self-made. So yeah, he taught me business stuff that then it helped me for years. Like literally, this would have been as recent as 2 weeks ago when Kim asked me that. So it's constantly coming back to me through osmosis some way, right, from the past.
It does. I mean, you've got a son. So do you do anything to teach? I'm sure you do teach him about business.
Yeah, so I have my son, Nick. My daughter, Kayla, was the general manager, but I have 2 great grandkids now. So she keeps her finger in a few higher level things, but she's not actively here every day. And then I have my son-in-law, Zach, who is with us and owns part of the companies too. So yes, I've been literally pointedly building them like I try to build team members. Building a business, it's all about, at some level anyway, it's about building team members. After you get the sales thing licked, like, okay, you get the generating going on, it's about building team where you can't grow. So I don't treat them, well, I do treat them differently because I'm with them more, but I've always tried to develop them. If I go back to when the kids were like, they were in middle school, my own kids, I absolutely did things like, vision boards, saving, paying them to earn money. Like, yes, I did a lot of that budgeting when they first got on their own, how to do a simple 4-week budget, things like that I learned, when I was younger.
And that's impressive. I mean, you were lucky in that your dad was there and he taught you all of those things and you still use them today. Because I think for most of us, school does not teach us. And that's unfortunate. So you've got to find other ways or go learn it on your own. And having that ingrained is a big, big part of it.
Yeah, not even college, right? I mean, I might be speaking out of school. It's been years since I graduated, but I don't know. They weren't teaching real estate then. I understand they are now. I don't think they're teaching money habits. I doubt it.
They're teaching real estate now in college. In what sense?
I had a gentleman, he passed away a month ago, sadly, but I had a gentleman that was one of our higher level programs for coaching. He brought his whole family to an office visit. You can come as an office visit. He literally brought his kids. They were in high school, and the kids left here, and he called me and said, wow, they were lit up to know that your kids were in your business and they want to join us someday in our business. They were young. And so fast forward, I'm super psyched to say he's passed away, but his son, because of visiting the office, is learning creative real estate in college in New Jersey. He's from Pennsylvania. He went to college in New Jersey. He's going to be a junior, or I think he is now, and he's learning real estate, and he's got some cool classes. I think that's so neat.
That's interesting. I have not heard of colleges actually teaching how to do real estate investing.
And it was leases and things like that, like creative. It wasn't just, 101.
It seems kind of silly that he's paying that kind of tuition. I don't know what his tuition is, where he could just go get to real estate classes. And
when Don was alive and Michelle was still very close, we were close, as you know, with our whole community. But I said to him, look, I know you got your heart set on this because he was an engineer, right? Just got to do things a certain way. I said, Don, I know you got your heart set on this, but he could come hang out with the kids and me and go through an apprentice program and he would crush it compared to class. But, you had to send him through.
We're all stuck in these patterns. Like, we're supposed to do things a certain way, and it's society says behave this way. And sometimes we need to break the chains that society puts on us and say, no, we're going to do it a different way because that is what's going to actually build us wealth. Society doesn't teach us to build wealth and how to do those things. But it's good to see that they're at least learning a little bit. Interesting.
So to your earlier questions and to this point, my son, Nick, who I think you've met through some things we've done together, Nick had a head injury in 2003. Doctor said he wouldn't walk, talk, or read again. Fast forward, he's doing great. He's running the business with me. But he said in 2007-ish, when he was graduating from high school, hey, Dad, I don't want to go to college. It was after his head injury. He's gone through rehab, going through everything again. And he said, I don't want to go to college. I said, okay, here's the deal. You're going to go through my curriculum. Literally, you're going through my curriculum. My wife said to him, do you know what you're getting into? So I sent him to all my mentors. I brought him to Mastermind events. I literally brought him through everybody I met. People like you, people like just anyone I had met, I put him through that. And he never went to college and he's running all the companies with me and doing great.
I tried to convince my kids of that because it was much later. By the time I figured out and made that decision that college was a total game, I tried to push my daughter to say, if you want to walk away, feel free to walk away. Because even in high school, like I took her to see Tony Robbins, Brendan Burchard, Seth Godin. Okay. So she got the exposure. She just felt that if she didn't go to college, she might be missing something. Because society, and we had already said to her, this is what you normally do. But I had changed my attitudes towards that. My son wants to be an engineer, so he has to go to college.
That's what I was going to say next. My daughter wanted to go pre-vet, and she had since changed and finished school. But I said, okay, that's a specialty, like an engineer. I get it. Like if you've got your heart set on that. Now, I have an opinion on, because I'm in real estate, why that probably is not a good idea. But if they have a specialty, yeah, they should, of course.
And it makes sense, but you have to do it appropriately. So let's kind of take a step back, and you kind of alluded to this. Everyone thinks that business is overnight success. It's not. You face struggles in life. 2003, you got the phone call, right, about your son. Can you just share a little bit more about that and then how that changed the way you thought about life?
Sure. I haven't been asked that on a podcast, and I appreciate it. Okay, so I was literally, I'll tell you like it was yesterday. I was driving. Nick left that morning from middle school. It was a ski club day, and he forgot his helmet. We didn't know this. They didn't require it then, so no big deal. My wife said to me about 3 weeks ago, actually, can you imagine they brought him then? It was a really icy, rainy day. Like, why would you bring the kids? But needless to say, they brought him. I was driving to an attorney's office to do a presentation. It wasn't real estate at the time. And I got off the exit ramp, and I got a call from the school that said, hey, your son was in an accident at ski club. They tried to life flight him. They couldn't. It was too windy. So right then I knew it was bad. So I turned around. I was literally in tears driving back that second. But fast forward, what happened was I showed up at the hospital and they gave me a bag. My wife wasn't there yet, luckily. And they gave me a bag with his clothes and said we had to cut him off. Like they cut all his ski stuff off and cut him off. He had a headset on. So they cut all that off and handed that to me. We sat there for probably 6 hours. Couldn't even see him. When we were let in the room, his head was literally, guys on a video for the listeners, but literally out like, I don't know, 8 inches. Like it was swelled on one side. So they had to tap into it. I forget what it's called. Sorry, I'm not in medicine, but they had to tap into it, into his skull to drain it. It was ugly. And then we were told week after week after week. So I'm trying to run a company, and we're told week after week after week he won't walk, talk, or eat again on his own, and he was still in a coma. So yes, to your point, to try to run a company like that, I've said on my show many times, like, stuff happens, and you need to follow people like you and I that have gone through this stuff, sadly, but not sadly in hindsight, because it strengthens you, that know how to weather storms, right? Personal and economic. So Kim would go during the day, my wife, once he went into therapy and was awake, and I would go every night and sleep there. So we were just passing in the wind for about 90 days, Kim and I.
And then clearly it turned out well. What changed? What happened?
So this goes deeper, meaning what I did. So all these years that you and I might have gone to Tony Robbins and all these speakers, right? This is when you know if you really can do it. So he couldn't talk yet. He was transferred to Boston to rehab. Still couldn't talk. Gave us thumbs up, blinked. So I hung affirmation signs all over his hospital room, everywhere. Like everywhere he looked, he would see an affirmation sign, and there'd just be all positive sayings. You know, you're strong. You're gonna be fine. When he was in a coma, we talked to him nonstop. You just bumped your head. You're gonna be fine, because I'm a strong believer in the whole energy. If a doctor came in and started to say anything negative, because they got to tell you the worst, we whisked him out of the room. To tell us out there, you don't talk in here. So we did all that. And then when he was able to go to rehab, the doctors told us, they don't know what's got into him, but he just won't stop. Like, he'd do weights on his off hour. It'd be exhausting. He just kept going. So he came out of it, knock on wood. And it wasn't for luck. It was because he worked his butt off.
And a lot of times doctors don't know the real outcomes, right? It's an art more than it is a science. And they think, I can't tell you how many times we've heard stories of people who have recovered from things and have beaten the odds. But you have to believe in yourself. And it comes down to that mindset and so forth.
I think the key word you just said is mindset, Rocky. Yeah. I was running just this morning. I run a couple times a week down to the beach near my house, and the sun was coming up. And I was listening to Jim Quick's audio tape, Limitless, audio book. He was going through brain injury examples of people that have overcome ridiculous odds, like even worse than Nick's, as bad as it was. And it's mindset and surroundings, of course.
So did that have any impact on what freedom meant to you?
What freedom meant? It had a big impact. I'm sure I'd have a better answer if I thought about this for a few days, right? But it had a big impact on, okay, shit. If life happens like this, and it's going to someday happen again in some different format, because this is what happens, good, bad, or otherwise, you got to set your business and your life up to handle that, right? And someone, unfortunately, has a health scare, then they do it. So you got to do it from day one. I know you're big on this because you help entrepreneurs amazingly do things like this. But I don't know if I'm answering your question directly, but I think it definitely is a big lesson on how do you set things up to not rely on you.
You got to systematize everything so that you do have the freedom to be able to deal with life.
Yep.
And still maintain your business. Because I think that's what a lot of business owners don't realize, or people in general. Even if you're working, it's the same thing. When you get those health scares, life still goes on, and you got to figure out how to make it all come together and how to make it all work. Now, you've been in real estate for quite a while, so you went through 2008 and through the downturn. What were the lessons that you learned through all of that?
The painful lessons? It's why we're here today and why we build what we build. But so I'm only kidding, but it was painful at the time, and you couldn't convince me that it was a good thing. But it is now. The lessons were two things. I went through two major speed bumps in my real estate career in 30 years. This fall will be 30 years. And both times, Rocky, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you, I didn't know this about 3 years ago, it dawned on me. Both times I had no mentor, coach, advisor, because I got to the point at those pre-crash, both times, where I was like, I got it. I got cocky. I don't need a mentor. I don't need a coach. I got it all figured out. And it was the stupidest thing I ever did, because then when it happened, I just my ego grew and I couldn't go back and ask anyone. So that's a lesson. You've got to, in my opinion, this is probably a strong statement for someone to swallow, but you've got to be attached to a coach every month of the year in some shape, form, or fashion. Mental, financial, I don't care what it is. As you grow, find someone that can get you to the next step. I think you're crazy not to. Number one. Number two, from a real estate specific standpoint, yeah, the lesson was don't sign on bank loans. Because I just wrote an article for Forbes on this, and there's no offense to bankers. You probably know a whole bunch of bankers. I hope they don't get offended. But the fact is, they don't give a rat's behind about you. They have a job, and God love them, but they don't care about you personally. So if you personally sign on loans, they're obligated to come to you, right? I'm being very soft with that, but that's what they do. And they can wreck your life and your assets and your family's assets. So I do not allow our family to sign personal loans, nor do I tell the students to. And if they do, I try to help them wind out of them in a few years if I can. So those are two big lessons. Coaches, not signing on banks. And then third, not using others' capital. I know this is totally against what some investors will say, but the fact is, me personally, I don't want to put my head on the pillow at night knowing that I'm signed on personally or obligated to anyone, unless it's a close friend and we've got this, understand there's a different level there, but certainly not going out and raising capital. It's just not in my wheelhouse mentally. That's a long answer. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, debt turns into a noose, and depending on how your loans are with the bank, if you have commercial loans, they pull them in a heartbeat. They don't care. Correct. If you've got a 30-year fixed mortgage, that's one thing. They can't come after you as long as you are paying your mortgage every month. Correct. You have a little bit more safety. But when you're doing large real estate deals, it's not unreasonable for them to either cut your loans or to just cancel them. Even if you're paying, that's what people don't realize. Even if you're paying them, somebody in the bank gets skittish and they go, yeah, let's shut this off. Or somebody buys the bank and the next company comes in and goes, no, we don't want to do this anymore. And it will cause people to blow up. So that's definitely not fun.
You didn't realize you just did a perfect tie with everything. So you asked me earlier about my childhood, right? My father, I watched it 3 times. I wrote about this in this recent article. 3 times I watched him in his career in that first business. He's bought and sold 2 or 3, where he said to me, I was part of the business, I'm going to move banking over here because they don't have the personal relationship or whatever. They called my loan. And then he goes over there and then 5 years later, they get bought out and it happens again and again and again. They called his loans. And this was like healthy businesses, to your point. So that's what probably sparked some of my coming out of the crash going, forget banks. I watched my father get beat up too many times and it was just stressful. He got through it. He built major businesses and sold them, but he stressed out with it. So how about just don't deal with them? The people that are listening don't see, but you're seeing my office at my building. Sometimes I'm at my house. My building was bought with a gentleman who's a savvy real estate investor, owner financing. So I didn't go through the microscope up to butt underwriting. I didn't go through an application. I didn't go through 30% down for a commercial loan. I just bought it with him. It was simple. It was a handshake until it got to closing. And this was a $500,000 building. No banks.
And there are multiple ways to get financing. I think people sit in a box, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that momentarily, but there are multiple ways to raise capital, and you just need to be aware of what's out there, which comes back to what you're talking about, is learning and seeing what the different opportunities are and how to go about doing that. I think in your book, there was a story of Ray Dalio of being happier after, and that you needed a little permission, I believe, to be happier now.
Trying to think what that was. You probably 100% have it right, but whether my brain remembers is the whole of the story.
I think for most people, they say, well, I'll be happy when.
I got it. Yeah. Okay. This is a biggie. I mean, look, I did it, Rocky, for my whole younger career. So when I see my kids now, Nick and Zach, I call my kids, they're 31 and 32. But when I see them traveling through their journey, I stress that. Like, look, in the people I coach, there's not I'll be happy then. There just simply isn't. And because most people get to their goal and they go, oh shit, what do I do now? So it's the journey. You got to be like ecstatic about what you're doing now, who you're helping, your personal, your why. And if you're not, then stop, get with someone that can walk you through what I call the why exercise, but be happy now. It's not future stuff. You can be bumming when you get there because it's not about that.
If you're not happy now, you're not going to be happy then. It is a journey, and you, as you've seen, like you've had pivots in life, and you've got to enjoy the journey because that's truly where it happens.
Can I comment on that? And I actually have a question for you on this. So yeah. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. So here's what else I realized. And I know people have said this, but I want to know what you think of, okay, Someone says, well, I get it, but when I get the money, then I'll do this, or I'll be this. The fact is, when they get more money, like when our clients go from not doing a real estate deal to doing, let's just pick a small one, like 50 grand. All that did is magnify what the hell they are now. That's my opinion. Do you agree with that or no?
I do. As a matter of fact, the story, and we talk about this in one of the groups that I'm in, money magnifies your problems. And if you haven't fixed your underlying issues, it gets really, really bad when you've got $1 million and you still realize you have a miserable life because there's nobody to blame anymore. And there's no longer, well, when I have money, I have money now and I'm still miserable. What am I doing about that? And you have to figure it out now. Money's just going to magnify it. So it'll magnify your happiness. It'll magnify your sadness. It'll magnify your misery. So yeah, that is very, very true. So let's talk about the book. What inspired you to write the book, Real Estate on Your Terms?
The same thing that inspired the course, Rocky, and that was, I've been screaming about this for years. I'm going to continue. The market, the educational market for real estate and other industries too, but let's just focus on my world. In my opinion, and again, I'm not shooting arrows at any one person, is loaded with crap. And it's either loaded with crap for one of a couple of reasons. One, it's outdated, or two, they're giving you pieces, a book or a course, doesn't matter. I'm saying generally speaking, they're giving you pieces on purpose and they're leaving you hanging. And three, they're giving you all the fluff. So my thought was, with our home study course in the book, my thought was, all right, listen, let's just tell them exactly what we do, A through Z. Like, there's nothing hanging. I've gotten calls saying, I read your book. Like, I totally get it. Now, can you help me go faster? Like, but they get it because we don't hold anything back. There's even a chapter that says what can go wrong. And without using their name, one of the people, big name in the real estate education space said to me, Chris, why would you put that in there? You're scaring people away. I said, no, you're sending people off all happy. They're not scared, but they're happy. But then they go to a deal and they go, oh, he didn't tell me that. Like, how do I do this? And they're all shook up. No, I tell them. So when they get there, they go, oh, he said this would happen. It's okay. And it's a world of difference. So that's what inspired me to do the book. And I always wanted to write one, but in middle school, I was literally put in a reading class instead of a language class, like literally the dunce hat. And so I had this label like that I wasn't worthy of doing that. And then I wrote the book. So if I told my English teacher way back then, or the people that told me, no, you can't take a language, you basically stink, you got to go to a reading class, I think they would have laughed. But that inspired me too. Subtly, quietly, that inspired me.
And congrats on getting your book out. There's a lot of people who want to write a book. Most of them don't do it. And they don't get through the process. And nowadays, I mean, the other thing is you can always hire somebody to help you write the book. And you get a coach and get a writing coach, or we've had ghostwriters on the podcast that kind of, they know how to extract all the information from you and then put it in a story and get it out. So there's no reason not to if you choose to. Eventually I will have a book, but I'm hiring a ghostwriter.
No, I definitely agree. It does put you, if you're a listener, thinking, well, how does that relate to me? Because I did. It puts you in an authority position, definitely, to be the expert in your industry, and people want to deal with experts. If you're going to a doctor, do you want an expert or some newbie? You want an expert. Okay, so write a book. That's my opinion for everybody.
And that's very, very true. So a big part of what you do in real estate is subject to deals. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. I just this morning at around 5 a.m. spoke with one of my students who was just on fire, and he just tied up a new subject to deal last night. Subject to means this. Let me start with a definition so everybody kind of is on the same page. Subject to means what? It means I'm buying Rocky's property, for example, if he's the seller. Subject to is existing financing in place. So let me give you some numbers. I'll remember roughly what my student just told me this morning. This couple, this will give you exact scenario and explain it. This couple is leaving the state where he lives. I won't use his name or the state. It's not important. The house is worth, it's on the market for sale by owner for like $310. They're not getting it sold. They owe about $270. So if in a perfect world he sold it for $310, he'd get around $40,000. So in their mind, they said to him, I'd like $30,000, but I'd like to leave next month. I can't make any more mortgage payments. They're under a little bit of pressure. So Brian will buy this property for the existing loan. So when it goes to the closing table, instead of a bank showing up and on the settlement statement showing his new money, it just says existing loan of 270. Brian then, from closing on, takes over those payments. The loan never went in his name. I didn't mean to use his name. The loan never went in my student's name. But he's making the payments. So what does that do in the deal? And then you can ask me if I left a hole. It relieves the seller of debt immediately. If he cuts the right deal, he'll cut that equity down they thought they were going to get if he's going to start right away. If not, he'll push it out further to get a buyer first. But it's okay either way. Then it lets Brian control a piece of real estate for no money down. Okay, no money down except for maybe some transfer tax. So he now has a $300,000 house he paid nothing for. He did not personally go on the loan, and he will then create, as maybe we'll talk about now or some other time, our 3 payday system on that house. That house is probably worth over $100,000 profit to him over the next 3 to 5 years. That's pretty cool. So you buy a house subject to, meaning it stays in the seller's name.
Today's episode is sponsored by Profit Answer Man Podcast. Did you know that most small business owners hate looking at their financials? It's one reason they may struggle with business success. The Profit Answer Man podcast helps them ensure they are profitable and can pay their employees and weather the storms we all have to face. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. So let's talk about the 3 paydays. That's impressive.
So this goes back to the earlier discussion we had. This is kind of cool the way you structured it. They all through my real estate career until 2012. So if that was 9 years ago, you're talking 21 years of real estate. I was good with, hey, I can hustle as a realtor. I can hustle as a builder. I can hustle as a rehabber. I can hustle as an investor and get paid very well. Some deals very, very well, like not regretting it. But when I figured out, when I re-engineered this whole business after the crash, when I figured out why not get paid 3 times, and it lives right in your world perfectly because it's, fits in the profits first nicely. That is, you get paid up front, cash. Okay, that's a pretty cool business model. Like I get paid right away. I get paid every single month, small amount, monthly spread between what I'm paying the bank and what I'm getting from my buyer. Small, but steady cash flow. And then I get paid long-term when I cash the deal out. Okay, so now I'm creating now money, continuous money, and long-term wealth with one deal. Well, that's better than one paycheck. So that's the 3 payday system. We trademarked it, Rocky, in the US. I don't know if I told you that. So we sort of own that now, 3 paydays.
Impressive. And that's the one thing, like I had Mark Baldowski on years ago talking about land flipping. And that's what he did is he turned it into a payday now and then the long-term cash flow. And if somebody stopped paying him, it was actually good, not bad, because then he could restart the whole deal and he took the property back. And so he had turned what would have been a single payday into a long-term cash stream.
Mark's a good
which
guy.
is important.
I like Mark.
Yeah, very nice guy. So that's impressive. Is that one of the easiest ways to get started in real estate then? Or are there some others that you think about?
Not sub 2. Good question. And let me tell you why I say that. I love subject to and owner financing like I bought this building. But if you're brand new and or you don't have a little bit of reserve, when you buy a sub 2 property, you're usually relieving that seller of debt. And therefore there will be you having to you're not putting money down. So you can't say to that seller like I just gave, hey, we're going to put no money down. And by the way, pay your transfer tax. No, they're not going to go negative at closing just to give you a property. So you got to pay their transfer tax. It's one of their incentives to do it. And in his area, he said, Chris, it probably cost me $700. In my area, that probably would have cost me $2,800. But it's not astronomical. But if you're new, why not just tie it up differently? Do the same deal, the 3 paydays on the exit, but tie it up on a lease purchase. Our lease purchase agreements have a $10 deposit pre-written in the agreement. So that same student's last 10 deals he's done, and he's accumulated 3 paydays worth $760,000. I just did an interview with him, so I know his numbers. $760 in 17 months on all 3 paydays. And he did them all in lease purchases with $10 on the deposit. Every one of them, he did that.
So what's a lease purchase?
Yeah, so same house. Let's go to that same deal that he just did. Because when he was newer, he would have done it as a lease purchase. He would have said to them instead, hey, you owe 270, it's worth 310. I'm going to structure a lease purchase agreement whereby I take over your payments, same thing. You stay on the loan. You also maintain the deed. You don't transfer the deed to me, Mr. Seller. And everything else works the same way. I take over your payments. I'm going to put a buyer in the home that needs time to get financing. I'm going to collect my 3 paydays. No transfer tax got paid. No nothing except for a $10 deposit. As I, in 2012 and 13, and as the students now gain confidence and understand and gain cash flow, now they get creative. Now those 3 paydays grow astronomically because they can do bigger, better deals.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that there is different ways to do things, different ways to finance things, in that the money is built when you can be creative in how you do things. Are there other types of real estate deals that you teach?
The 3 ways we buy, we just said lease purchase, subject to, and owner financing. But the owner financing one, I'll just mention this, is a niche within owner financing because I don't want to say target, that's a weird word. We focus on free and clear properties. This building that I'm in was able to be structured creatively because it's free and clear. He's 71 years old, doesn't own a dime on it. Why is that cool for us? Because we can structure either monthly principal payments, no interest, monthly principal. Think about that as far as a recession-resistant hedge. It's great. So every month you're paying no interest and it's going down on principal. That's pretty unique. Opposite of a bank, right? Secondly, this guy said, hey, Chris, I've never done that. Like, he's very conventional. He owns the most land in this area. Like, he's not a newbie. I said, okay, I'm not paying interest day one. So let's come up with something that's going to make us both happy. It took me 5 minutes to explain this to him. I said, I will pay you a little bit down because my own building. It broke my rule of down payment. But I gave him a little down. Then I gave him monthly principal payments and I gave him chunks, not just a small payment. For the first 9 months, I hammered the principal, Rocky, down from 550 to like 490 or maybe it's 460 just in 9 months. And then I said to him, now let's amortize the balance. And he got his way at that point and he got his interest rate at that point. And I've been making the payments for 3 years. So we hammered the principal. I was happy and he got his price. So everybody won. It's a 10-minute, 5-minute conversation.
And you have to have the conversations and you have to know how to explain the opportunities. And you also have to understand what the buyer's needs for. And I don't know in this sitch, but a lot of times in those types of situations, the buyer doesn't want that massive tax hit. And if you structure the deal properly, they can push the taxes out on their end as well. And so it's understanding that.
Yeah, that was him actually. So huge point you made. So I had an offer once from a bank, and against everything I do, they said we could refi it at this rate if we give you a line, we want to get your building. So I unbeknownst to most people, because I wouldn't do a bank loan, I did check with the owner. I said, hey, what if I was to pay you out? He said, absolutely not. I told you I don't want to be paid out. Because to your point, he wants to stretch out the taxes. He wants to have an estate plan for his son, who originally was going to be given this building, and he's not here. He's in an different state. So he doesn't want to be paid out. And most people in this area I live on an island. Most people would say, well, those types of deals aren't in my neighborhood. I guarantee you, before I just said that, somebody listening said, well, you can't get those in my area. Yes, you can. They're everywhere. A third of the properties in the United States are free and clear. A third. You have plenty of people to talk to.
Oh, it is. And a lot of those people are elderly. And they do have what you talked about. They have tax issues because the properties are fully depreciated and they don't want that hit. And they have estate issues, and they're probably at the point in life where money is not the most important thing. They want to do things a certain way. And it's just coming together and having those conversations.
You know what's important to them? Money, no, like you just said, price. It's usually an ego. I gave this guy his asking price. Nobody else did. And it's the best deal we ever did. We walked into tenants. I mean, how can you beat it? We walked into positive.
So you have a full chapter in your book on yes, but. And I've got to tell you, I struggled with this. So as a young person, I knew how to fix every part of the house. Like, I know how to do electric, hang sheetrock, frame, do the roof. I was selling real estate in college. I didn't buy my first investment property until my 40s, right? I understood real estate. It was always a matter of yes, but. And you talk about it in the chapter. Why do people have such trouble getting started?
Okay, this goes back to the mental piece. Like, we teach 3 pillars: mindset, skill set, systems. And before I answer this, I'll say the skill set and the systems we teach to everybody. To your point of waiting that long, why do some of my students go 42 days and they pop a first deal with 3 paydays, and some went, literally, this is the history, some went 365 days. It's this piece, and it's things like self-doubt, confidence, money paradigms that we talked about earlier, people around them who they associate with, their peer group. All these things matter. People go, yeah, I heard Tony Robbins or whoever talk about. No, it really matters, and make no doubt about it. All those things I just said, they make an enormous difference in your life, in your business, in your checkbook.
That they do. So you mentioned 3 pillars. Let's just dig into those. What are the 3 pillars?
We call it our genius model. So the 3 pillars are mindset, skills, and systems. Okay, that's us. That's not every business. That's us. And within those 3, there's 3 more that make up, like, what is skill set? Well, scripts for us and things like that, right? What's within systems? Well, lead generation, and so each one has some subcategories. So every time we're doing a show on our own show, our podcast, or we're doing an event like we had last Saturday, or we're teaching coaches, or we're teaching their students, doesn't matter. Something falls in one of those pillars. So last Saturday when we did our event, for example, Rocky, it was 100% 8 hours of deal structure. Had nothing to do with mindset. In January, we do what's called a Wicked Smart Kickstart. That is only mindset. There are no deals at that. So we make sure we fall on one of those pillars at one of the 4 events during the year, if that makes sense.
Are all 3 equal, or is one pillar more important than the others?
Well, I've asked every speaker on my podcast, and every speaker has said, and they're all, hugely successful. They all say, without a second hesitation, they'll go something like, oh, mindset's 80%, or, oh, mindset's 95%. Like, they know they've been through a lot. I had Brian Tracy on about a month ago. Brian's in his 80s now. And Brian said, oh, it's 95%. And then he went on to say, it's at least a 7-year journey to get through as an entrepreneur, just that mindset piece, because this is his words, you're going to suck for a few years. You're going to be okay and start to figure it out for a few years, and then you're going to have success. But it takes time to work through these pillars, mainly mindset.
And I've heard the saying, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. And that is, again, it comes down to mindset. And I'm glad you said it's a journey, because everyone thinks that this is an overnight success story. And it's not overnight success. It takes time. And in the beginning, as you said, you're going to suck. That's just life.
Okay, so here's a funny story. We were sitting, you don't know my whole story, but we had a downsize after the crash. My wife, to her credit, said, that's it. We're downsizing. So we went to a 1-bedroom apartment, Rocky, 1-bedroom apartment from a $2 million house, 2.5. And it caused us to get rid of the steamroller behind us with the bills. It caused us to get rid of all debt, and it allowed me to build a monster business that we have today. So all that to say, we were sitting in the living room I'm 55. So it was 5 years ago. And she said, kiddingly, but accurately, it took you 50 friggin' years to figure this out. It's not an overnight. So people say, oh, wicked smart, the community, all the stuff you're doing, that's great. You did it so fast. No, I didn't. It took essentially 50 years or 30 years in real estate to get it.
We are the same age. And, I say that to myself all the time. It's like, it's taken me this long to figure out life, right?
This does.
It takes time. And my biggest goal in my life is to hopefully get my kids at 21 to know what I know at 55.
Right.
So that they don't have to waste the 34 years of trying to figure it out, because, not only do they not teach you money in school, they don't teach you life.
Mm-mm.
They don't teach you mind. There's no class called mindset, right? In schools actually have much more of a negative mindset of pushing you into a box instead of freeing you. And parents have the same thing too. So parents want you to be safe because you're their kid, they also kind of constrain your mindset as well. And I've learned as a parent to change that and tell my kids to take chances. And now if I talk to somebody in their 20s, I'm like, your 20s should be nothing but exploring, trying, finding out what your core values are, finding out what your super skills are, and then figuring out how you can use that to build dramatic success in your 30s and 40s. And don't be afraid to try things out. And I think that's where we get it wrong a lot of times.
Well, this is why the whole thing you just said, word for word, is why it's over the top important to make sure you're latched onto someone or some group at every stage of your life. Every stage of your life. A quick story again. This morning, another one of our higher end students called me and said, Chris, we've been with this coach, and I won't mention her name. And they said, we kind of just feel like we're outgrowing him. It's actually starting to drag on us now. I said, exactly. So now pick who you want for the next 6 months of 21, and then tell me who you want for January of 22. They have me for real estate, but this is mind stuff. They understand the importance of both coaches. So that's what you do. You go, what's my next 6 months look like, and what do I need? We call it specialized training in our team. So our company and personally, every team member looks and says, what does the company need to fast forward us? And what do we need? Because you cannot grow until you grow. Like, your income will not outpace you. It can't. So you got to keep developing.
And that's the thing. I mean, having different coaches, because you will hit a level. And I know I've done that many times. I've hit levels with coaches and programs that I'm in. And I'm like, okay, it's time for the next one. It's time to take the next step and to move to the next level. And you have to. Sometimes you're lucky and your coach will grow with you. Depends on the person and what they're doing. So clearly real estate is nuts right now. Just love to hear your thoughts on current market conditions. How has it affected you, and how are you pivoting?
Okay, so it affects us in a positive way. Here's why. We do things that the banks don't do, right? We do creative real estate. The amount of deals being done creatively outside of banks has increased dramatically since the early 90s, dramatically. Because not just because people like me hate banks, but because they make all these pivots. Yes, interest rates are great now, but they just shut down a whole bunch of people that can't get loans. It doesn't matter how good the rates are if you can't qualify. So how is it affecting us? Our deals skyrocketed right when COVID hit, April, May, June, because it was uncertain. Everybody needed a guide. Then the market went bonkers, like you said. And so can we do deals still? Yeah, we're doing plenty of deals every month in our community. Do you have to do more calls? You have to talk to more sellers to get a deal? Yeah, because the market's hot. As the market starts to, in my opinion, slow down, flatten, go down, nobody knows. If they did, there'd be a gazillionaire on a beach somewhere, we wouldn't be talking. So I don't know the answer. What I do know is it will shift. And when it shifts, the people that have been working in our community will be capitalizing so much so, Rocky, that I think they'll probably, like, let's just say by fall or by next spring it slows. People are predicting 22. Who knows? They don't know. But when it does, the students who have their finger in the game here with the way we do real estate, they'll create in 6 months, they'll create a decade of income with the 3 paydays. Fact. So the ones that are going, oh, it's hard now, I say, okay, so keep going. I never told you it was easy. And then you'll have a fortune in front of you, and some will do it and some will quit and go back to a job. And that's sad, but that's what'll happen. So you just got to bear it. The market's going to be phenomenal, whether it's flat, up or down in the terms world, in the creative real estate world. It's awesome.
And that's true. Knowing what I know now, I would have done things dramatically different back in 11 and 12. But I didn't know. And having gone through taking the steps, flipping the houses, doing the rentals, I now I will go into the next downturn with a whole different mentality and a whole different way of doing things. And I will just pour gas on the fire. And as you said, 6 months, you make 10 years worth of deals, and you just make it happen. Deal. Yep. You got to go crazy when the opportunities hit. So based on our conversation today, what's one action step people can take to move forward in their life this week?
One action step? Okay, here's a formula. Can I call this one action step, but it's 3 steps?
Whatever. Yeah, that's fine. If it's 3 steps, it's 3 steps.
All right. So it doesn't have to be real estate. Find a niche that you can attach to passionately. Okay, a niche inside of real estate, if that's your world, if it's another business, if it's a restaurant, if it's a popcorn stand, I don't care. Find something you can get behind. Then second step, find a person like Rocky and I talked about in that niche that's A, still doing it, B, where you want to be, and C, you can relate to morally, ethically, and value-wise, because that's important. And then once you do step 1 and 2, here's the part that everybody goes, okay, that's easy. No, this is the hard part. The hard part is then put the blinders on. Brian Tracy said 7 years. I say, put the blinders on for at least 3 years. It's not going to be, you're not going to have, you might not have huge success then. But if you come at this, like if you were talking to me and you came at me and said, Chris, I'm serious. I'll put blinders on for 3 years. If I had 3 years with you, you'd see why you need to keep going at the end of 3 years, and you won't quit with a puddle or a speed bump. That's why I say 3 years. Whereas people instead, Rocky, say, I'll try it. No, you don't try it. If you try it, you're going to quit. You commit for 36 months. Can you imagine you and I, this is a good, best analogy. You and I say, I'm going to start a business. We go, okay, great. We kind of get it. We get entrepreneurship. And you and I were the same age. And we go, all right, we're going to need investors. Let's get them all in the conference room. We go over our plan and they go, oh, this is awesome, Rocky and Chris. Yeah, I'm in. And then at the very end, we go, all right, thanks a lot, guys. We're going to give this a shot for about 6 months. We'll let you know how it goes. Did pull all the money off the table. 6 months. You're not going to try anything. You got to be all in or not.
And that's very true. When I started this business and made this last pivot, my mindset was it's going to take me 3 years. And I talked to a lot of business owners. I'm like, how long did it take you to get going? And they said, well, year 1 sucked. Year 2 was okay. And year 3 was when things came together and we really started to hum. And for me, I've actually kind of bent the curve because I spent a lot of time studying prior to and seeing other people's mistakes and testing things out. I literally bent the curve so that I was able to do that in half the time. And it's all doable, but you got to put the work in, you got to put the effort in, I tell people, the first step is the hardest. After that, everything else starts to become easy. And having help in the way of coaches and masterminds and courses and programs makes a dramatic difference in allowing you to achieve that.
Well, yeah, you got to stack, right? I call it stacking. And the theme of our next event is stacking. I even have a t-shirt that says keep stacking. And that's this. It's like you and I trying to build a building. And instead of stacking one at a time, like layer, coaching, systems, mindset, like layer. Instead, it's like, I want to go to the 4th floor and put a brick up there. No, you can't. So it's a bit of a stacking accumulation process. It
is. And you got to start the stack and do the hard work and understand that it is a journey. It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Focusing daily on my why. Revisiting my why daily.
And you have to know your why. That's the first step. If you don't know your why, then you're on the rat race and you're wondering why every day is miserable.
You're on the I'll be happy when thing. Yep.
Yeah, on the happy when. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
The 2 big things that I mentioned, so not to sound redundant, but don't sign personally on bank loans. And I'm saying that because it's just not real estate related. It's personally related. And then success leaves clues. Please don't try to go at it by yourself. There's a mentor, there's a coach who's done it and can just guide you along the way like Rocky's doing his kids.
And I think the biggest thing a coach will do is prevent you from mistakes and remove the friction. When you get stuck, they have the ability to go, oh, okay, this is what you do now. And you're like, oh, is that it? Yeah. All right. Now I can take the next step. And that's a big part of it. If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Oh, I'd simply ask them in more time than this will take, but I'd simply ask them what their ultimate goal or dream was. And then say, good, okay, together, let's go find someone who did that and model it.
And I think most 18-year-olds still don't know what their dreams are. And they aren't given the time to think about them and to clarify that and say, and to challenge that. But if you can do that at 18, you have such a head start and you can have the ultimate life.
I agree.
If people would like to learn more about you, your courses, your programs, what's the best way for them to do that?
You and I are going to put a bunch of free, cool resources in the show notes. So that's easy, but they can go to smartrealestatecoach.com. I tell you what I'll do. I don't know if I did this last time I talked to you. We have a really cool 15-minute strategy call we do for some people. We can offer to your audience, just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/action. and the gentleman I was referencing that crushed it with all those deals, he'll have a 15-minute call with you.
Okay, cool. And we will put that in the show notes to make it easy for people to find you and to connect. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, buddy. Always good to hang out.
Mindset is everything. What are you doing to improve and grow yours? You have a coach who's helping you to get ahead? I've had several, and I belong to Mastermind groups. They've helped me tremendously in improving my life. I was on Chris's podcast in the past, and we've done some projects together with regards to Profit First. He has some webinars and information about real estate, and I'm going to put all the various links in the show notes. If this is something for you or you're interested in learning, check it out. Maybe you've got a totally different thing that you're going after, which was this week's action step. Find a niche you can be passionate about. Find a person who can help you. And then put your head down and go do it for 3 years. The reality is success takes time. I know people want overnight success, but it doesn't happen. Put in the effort to figure out your why. What would you love to do? And then go do it. Life is too short not to. Take the first step. It gets easier after that. Next week, I have on Jay Scott from Bigger Pockets Money to share his journey and how he pivoted from a high-paying tech job to investing in real estate. Hey, this isn't going to be a theme. We're not a real estate show. It just happened to come back to back, and they also provide tremendous value about how to live life. Hey, if you enjoyed today's show, I would appreciate if you could leave a review or a rating. It really helps me to secure better guests that I can share with you. And thank you for doing that. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.